Hi, welcome to this session on current affairs, wherein we will be covering the important news which unfolded in the first week of May 2022. To begin with, the Central Intelligence Agency CIA has picked up an Indian origin American as its first chief technical officer. Nand Mulchandani, who is set to become the first CIA CTO, has 25 years of experience in Silicon Valley. He has earlier served as Chief Technical Officer and Acting Director of Defense Artificial Intelligence Center. Mulchandani went to Cornell, Harvard, and Stanford universities after completing his schooling in Delhi. On the business front, the goods and services tax collection hit a new high. The collections rose 20% in the month of April 2022 to reach a new high of 1.7 lakh crore rupees. The growth in the month of April is based on the transactions which happened in the month of March and is the fastest expansion since November 2021. The total number of e-way bills generated in March 2022 stood at 7.7 crore, which is 13% higher than the previous month. The growth simply points to higher economic activity and tighter regulations. The growth also augurs well for the states as the 14% assured revenue growth formula comes to an end in the month of June and states have to make do without the compensation from the center. Again, Saudi Arabia comes to Pakistan's rescue. Saudi Arabia agreed to extend $8 billion financial package to Pakistan to help bolster its foreign exchange reserves and revive the ailing Pakistani economy. The financial package includes doubling of the oil financing facility from $1.2 billion to $2.4 billion, the additional money either through deposits or bonds, and rolling over of the existing $4.2 billion facilities. Saudi Arabia provided $3 billion deposits to the State Bank of Pakistan the previous year in December 2021, while the oil facility was operationalized from March 2022, providing Pakistan with $100 million to procure oil. Under the Imran Khan regime, Pakistan got a package of $4.2 billion, including $3 billion deposits and a $1.2 billion oil facility for 1 year, and linked it with the International Monetary Fund program. Pakistan foreign exchange reserves have depleted by $6 billion to $10.5 billion in the last 6 weeks itself. Pakistan requires actually a financial assistance of $9 billion to $12 billion till June 2022 to avoid further depletion of foreign currency reserves. On the domestic front, Supreme Court ruled that it can't be enforced that every individual be vaccinated, stressing that bodily autonomy and integrity are protected under the Article 21 of the Constitution. The Supreme Court said that no individual can be forced to get vaccinated against COVID-19. The Supreme Court also asked the center to make public the data on the adverse effects of immunization going on. A bench of Justices L. Nageshwara Rao and B.R. Gawai stated that the current COVID-19 vaccine policy is not arbitrary and unreasonable, but suggested that there should not be any restrictions on unvaccinated people in the public areas as long as the COVID numbers remain low. The center has earlier clarified that it had not made COVID shots mandatory and only stated that vaccination should be 100%. A petition to this effect was filed by Dr. Jacob Puliel, a former member of NTAGI, the National Technical Advisory Group on Immunization, seeking the top court's directive to disclose post-vaccination data regarding adverse events. The plea was opposed by the vaccine makers, Bharat Biotech, and Serum Institute of India. Last week, India saw its largest ever IPO opening up. At rupees 20,557 crore, the Life Insurance Corporation's LIC's initial public offer, which opened for the retail investors on May 4th, is certainly the biggest till date and also the first to enter the market with rupees 20,000 crore or more issue. The LIC IPO, first to enter the market with rupees 20,000 crore or more issue, which at its listing on May 17 will command a market capital of rupees 6 lakh crore, is possibly the highest for any stock listing. The IPO offers 22.13 crore shares for a 3.5% stake dilution in the world's 10th largest insurer by total assets. While the LIC IPO certainly dwarfs the size of the Paytm IPO, which at 18,300 crore rupees, now at the second position, LIC IPO is not the largest in the current calendar year. IPO, which was Energy Solutions, $10.8 billion, definitely is the largest one. It's also a far cry from Saudi Aramco's $25.6 billion IPO, which remains the world's largest till date. India slides in the Press Freedom Index ranking. It dropped 8 places to 150 out of 180 countries ranked on the World Freedom Index compiled by the Paris-based Reporters Without Borders for the year 2022. With an average 3 or 4 journalists killed in connection with their work every year, India is considered to be one of the world's dangerous countries for the media, according to Reporters Without Borders. In the last 20 years, India, which was ranked 80th on the index in 2002, has seen its press freedom ranking progressively plummet or decline. The Reporters Without Borders also adds that Indian journalists are exposed to all kinds of physical violence, including police violence, ambushes by political activists, and deadly reprisals by criminal groups or corrupt local officials, by supporters of Hindutva, with the situation very worrisome in Kashmir, where reporters are often harassed by police and paramilitaries. Coming back on the economic front, India's trade deficit now stands at $20 billion. India's exports shot by over 24% in the month of April to $38.2 billion, driven by the surge in international oil prices. Imports were also up by 27% at $58.3 billion, thereby resulting in a trade deficit of $20 billion. On the commodity front, petroleum product shipments more than doubled to $7.7 billion, and electronic exports also saw a high growth of 64% to $1.6 billion. On the imports front, crude oil shipments jumped 81% to $195 billion, and coal jumped by 137% to $4.7 billion. In a surprise move between two monetary policy decisions, the Reserve Bank of India, which is the central bank, hiked the key rates by 40 basis points. The RBI, in an off-cycle monetary policy review meeting, hiked the repo rate on 4th of May by 0.40%, such hike in almost 4 years. It precedes the US Federal Reserve's biggest hike in over 20 years in interest rates by 0.5%. While the rate hike was always on the cards, it was expected to come in the June meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee, but in a surprise move, RDI hiked the rates on May 4th itself. The central bank also hiked the cash reserve ratio, the CRR, which is the percentage of cash required to be kept in reserves against the bank's total deposits with the RBI, by 0.5% to 4.5%. The RBI governor's announcement decimated the stock market, with the BSE Sensex swinging over 1,500 points intraday before ending the session with a loss of nearly 1,307 points, settling at 55,669, wiping off 6.27 lakh crores of investors' wealth. The Indian Space Agency now joins the race to the planet Venus. After successful Moon and Mars missions, India is now set to join United States and European countries to go for Venus. According to Indian Space Research Organization, the Indian Space Agency, work has been going for years and Space Agency is now ready to send an orbiter to Venus. ISRO is eyeing a December 2024 deadline for the orbiter launch, which will study Venus' atmosphere, which is considered to be very toxic and corrosive in nature. NASA, the US Space Agency, is also sending two spacecraft to Venus, while the European Space Agency has also announced a mission to the planet. Finally, the Jammu and Kashmir Delimitation Panel submits its report last week. The delimitation panel, which was headed by the former Supreme Court Judge Ranjana Desai, has submitted its final report paving the way for holding assembly elections in Jammu and Kashmir. The panel was set up in 2009 after the centre converted Jammu and Kashmir into a union territory and bifurcated it, carving out Ladakh as another union territory. The panel has proposed a 90-member assembly, out of which 47 are from Kashmir region and 43 from Jammu region. In the previous Jammu and Kashmir assembly, that included 4 seats for Ladakh, the total number of MLAs were 87. Additionally, 24 seats were left vacant for Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Delimitation panel has maintained that number as of now. Earlier, Jammu used to send 37 MLAs and Kashmir region 46. In a first, 9 seats have been reserved for scheduled tribes and 7 seats are reserved for scheduled caste, up from 6 earlier. The number of Lok Sabha seats are 5: Baramulla, Srinagar, Anantnag Rajouri, Udhampur and Jammu, each comprising of 18 assembly seats. Finally, Prime Minister returned home after a 3-day international tour, which is the first of the year, from Europe on May 4th. During the tour, Prime Minister held bilateral talks with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Prime Ministers of Nordic nations, and French President Emmanuel Macron, who recently won the election, besides attending the second India-Nordic Summit. While in Germany, when in Berlin, bilateral cooperation, strategic partnership, and global developments were in focus. The second India-Nordic Summit focused on post-COVID economic recovery, climate change, and the global security situations. In the bilateral talks, business dominated. In Paris, issues of bilateral and mutual interest were discussed, and Prime Minister Modi described it as a brief but very fruitful discussion. Denmark's Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, hoped that India will definitely influence Russia to end the war. Not to miss from the last week, the Russia-Ukraine war continues, with Russia intensifying its attack. India and World Health Organization are now at loggerheads for the COVID deaths count. Supreme Court continues to hear the plea on sedition law, with the government hailing the present one. The Supreme Court also appointed a 5-judge constitution bench on the Centre-Delhi government dispute over legislative and executive control. India's foreign exchange reserves fall below $600 billion for the first time this year, and Centre cuts the target of wheat procurement by 50%. That were what happened in the first week of May. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon to receive notifications about upcoming videos. And don't forget to subscribe to the social media handles of LST.